Got to be right up next to it like this, huh? Okay. In deference to Newt Gingrich, I want to say two things. Number one, we all take baths up here. And number two, we have either worked all our lives and are retired, or are working very hard now, or are in school preparing to work. So we take baths and we work.
Tell Jeff Cutler that too.
Well, our schools, because obviously the private schools and the charter schools and others contribute to this, are leading to an isolation of groups of people who don't know each other. Our students don't know each other. They don't know children so much from another economic era or economic group, educational group, and consequently they are suspicious and frightful. And I tend to think that some of this widely spread segregation in our society is some of what is leading to the national lack of unity and inability to reach consensus on anything. I do think that that not only must we be that a critical part of both education here and international education is education is introducing each of us to new people, to new things, but a great part of that is knowing someone who is different from you, knowing them as a person. I have some friends, and I say this partially humorously, who are to me political Nazis. But I play golf with them. I have cocktails with them. I like them. I'm not going to shoot them or fight. I'll just tell them they're political Nazis and they say worse about me. But that's because I know them. But if I didn't know them, I would just think they were political Nazis. And so I think that personal acquaintance is so critical. I have worked extensively for a number of years with international education. And you can study the culture, you can know the gross national product and every song that they sing in Chile, but until you know a Chilean, as a friend, as a person, you won't have much understanding of the culture, and as a person you respect. So, I don't know what we do about all that, but I think it's a subtle problem that we need to understand.
Can everybody hear me okay? Yes. Okay, good. I happen to work for the best community college in North Carolina, and that's Sand Hills. And I imagine most of you, if not all of you, have had an opportunity to be a part of the programs that we offer. I work out of the Division of Continuing Education, and there are 58 community colleges in North Carolina. We are the third largest community college in the system. And one of the founding tenets of our system was workforce development, workforce education. And I have several hats at the school, but probably my biggest love is working with both existing companies and new companies moving into the area, working with the economic developers. We serve both Moore and Hoke counties. So we have a number of manufacturers, probably not as many as some of the other schools in the system have, but we have some very, very good companies. And part of my role is to work with them to help them develop their people and to help them train their people in the skills they need. We're seeing, and it's true, most of the low-skill, low-wage type of manufacturing is offshore and will be offshore and will never come back. And that's just the nature of the way things work here. But the manufacturing we've got is very high-tech, very high-skilled. And they're looking for employees that have those skills and have those abilities. And that's where they're not finding folks. There are jobs. There are jobs in a number of companies, and there are a number of jobs in the skilled areas. I have a company that's looking for industrial maintenance people, cannot find them, have not been able to find them since February. And this is a company that pays extremely well. And there are another number of other skilled trades programs. Electricians, when the construction economy turns back around, there will be an over need for electricians, and they're not out there. And what's happening is It's true that there's not a lot of jobs being created in those areas, but currently most of the folks serving in those areas are in the 55 to 65-year-old range, and they'll be retiring very soon. So the need becomes even more acute. So the community colleges were founded on a tenet of providing education, skill-based education, as one of their goals. And so we're trying to do that at Sand Hills. We will launch a number of vocational trades programs, we hope, in the fall of next year. But it's very expensive to train on those programs. They all require trainers. For example, and the educational technology is rapidly changing as well. There is on the market now a welding simulator training, which actually uses welding equipment, but you don't use the gas that welders use, and you don't use the rods that welders use. That's all virtual. And but that machine is $50,000 for one machine. So
despite having a college degree, I am more likely to get a job and I'm going to make more money. But that becomes very hard as college becomes very expensive. You can look to the fact that the average debt accumulating from someone who graduates from college right now is $25,000. At the point where I have to have a $25,000 debt to even get a job, you're going to see that this system is not created to help those who are being a part of it. And moreover, you can see that 3/4 of all Americans do not currently believe that a college education is worth it. We need a system that is focused, because of the globalizing economy, where a college degree is important. We need a system where people want to go to these 2-year or 4-year institutions and move on and thus be able to get the jobs which are necessary in our current economy. But the next thing that you need to look to is the fact, the ways that we can solve this problem. The first problem that you can look to, or the first way that we can solve this problem, is something set up by the Occupy movement when they outlined their college education strategies. The first is tuition-free education. And there's two main examples of a tuition-free education. The first of which would be the university system of California and the university system of New York. When you look to California in particular, you can find that when they had this when they had the tuition-free education system, they are capable of getting the people who are necessary to fill the jobs. But since they've started to privatize this education, and since they've begun to change back to a more privatized system, you can look to the fact that the Public Policy Institute of California says that California in itself is going to have a 1 million job shortfall by 2025. So what this is telling everyone here is that we need to create a system in which people can get to college and not have to suffer the debts and have jobs available. Because when you have these jobs, you're going to be making more money, and thus the social mobility that has not been existing will then become to unravel itself and exist itself for my generation and the generations to come. The main opposition to this, though, is that they say it's going to be too expensive to fund this system. Well, let's just put this in perspective. The Department of Education says it would cost $70 billion to provide tuition-free for every single person going to college in the United States. That's less than what the waste is for the Pentagon spending. If you were to eliminate the waste, we'd be able to do this. To put that in perspective again, anything such as, I don't want to get like too partisan here, but ending the Bush era tax cuts would get more money that we could fund this education, we could have people getting jobs, and we could end the economic spiral and downturn that we see in our nation. What we need is this system. The second way that we can help solve this problem is we can end the predatory loans that people going into college have to pay. A recent article I just read said the average student loan for someone in college is at 10%. These are predatory loans in the fact that they're just trying to get rich off your loans when they're treating it more as a credit card loan, whereas that it's more that it should be treated as someone trying to get an education and shouldn't be set to an extortionate rate at the point where I won't be able to pay it off at any point. For all those who are trying to get involved is to provide transparency in for-profit institutions. You can look to the fact that since they're receiving such federal subsidies and such federal aid, that if they're not being transparent in what they're doing, that means that they can spend the students' tuition money to do anything that they want. If we create a transparent system, the transparency itself will act as a watchdog role and keep these colleges from being able to manipulate our money that goes into them and not providing the education which is necessary. So in closing, if we want to get back to the American dream, if we want our children to be able to get above the income class that we've created for ourselves, If we want any system that is going to treat equality of opportunity as the main and most important thing, then what you need to do is you need to do something that is going to provide tuition-free education, a system that ends the predatory loans that are drowning out student debt and making it impossible to pay back, and you need transparency into the public education sector.
What one thing would they most like to change in education?
If I were the god of taxation and government and education, the thing I would do instantly, and would address it would address many of the problems we're talking about here, I would double the salaries of every public school teacher. My reason for that is, while I appreciate public school teachers and came from that background, my reason for that is that we need to attract the most capable people in our society, many more of them, into the public schools, and we need to reward the very talented people we currently have teaching. If we double the salaries, we would suddenly be competing for the people who are now going into the CPA firms and the law and the medicine, that sort of thing. And we would see a massive improvement in a few years in our public schools, simply because the skill level, the academic level, the personal intellect and professional training that these persons brought would be at a superior level. And that in some ways would help address the problem I touched on earlier, which is that the public schools continue to be the melting pot. Because if every teacher were as good as our very best, every teacher, which they would be eventually with this sort of salary change, you would see parents of all beliefs and economics electing to send their students to the public schools, because that's where they would be getting the absolute best education.
Just a quick tag to that. I've thought for many years it would be great if some foundation would pay, say, 50 principals throughout the country $500,000 a year and let them start new schools, and they could hire their own faculty and see what would happen in a 5-year period.
There's a school in New York City that is doing that, and it's going to be interesting to see what the results are.
I think if I had a wish, it would be that vocational education programs see a rebirth in the public school, high schools. When I was in school, there was a very, very strong vocational education program, and I think that would help prepare students if they wanted to move into the skill-based training. And in addition, better or increased funding from the legislature for my other wish.
My wish I kind of touched on briefly in my speech, and I think that the best thing coming forward is cost-free tuition. And I think that the reason why this would be such a benefit is when you have tuition-free education, you have people who are able to get these 2- and 4-year degrees and are capable of making more money. When you look at the fact that someone with a college degree is more likely to make $1 million more in their lifetime, what you do through this is you set up a system of taxpayers who are going to have more money, and at that point the system ends up paying for itself, because when people are making more money, then their tax is going to bring more money into the system, and that can lead to either better education through their increase in tax rates, or just the continuation of the program in itself to provide a better, either more technical workforce that is going to be able to achieve what we need in the more globalization of the U.S. economy.
Thank you. In my career, I was fortunate enough to probably visited 1,000 schools in this country, either worked in or visited. And it strikes me that what we most need in public education, in the way of day-to-day education, is smaller schools with more autonomy. Schools are caught up in big bureaucracies, and teachers don't have the autonomy that they need. Of all the schools I've been in, the one that struck me most was Central Park East in New York City. The school is in Spanish Harlem. There are 50% Hispanic, 45% African American, and 5% other. This is not a charter school. It's a neighborhood school. But people can come from the outside if they choose to in New York City. You can do that in any school. In this school, 91% of the kids go to college. They've had one dropout in over a 12-year period when I was looking at them. Every student takes a summer internship in some business. Every student takes at least one college course before he graduates, he or she graduates. Did I say there's been one dropout? Yeah, I think I said that in the 12-year period. It's remarkable.
Tell kids that they're not capable of doing things, and we do this through standardized testing. I read a recent article from the New York Times, and what it said is there's a school board director, and he took the standardized test that his 7th grade kids were taking. He failed. Not only did he fail, he got 10 out of 60 questions right. This is a man that has 20,000 employees working under him and is on the school board. So when you look to a system that tells you that you can't do something because a standardized test tells you're not smart enough, or we say that college is only for those who are too intelligent, you're not having a system that's preparing us to succeed. What we need is a system that's going to prepare us to succeed. And we need colleges that are going to, or we need ways that people can get into college, even if the costs are too high, even if they are told that they don't have that, or they're not smart enough to do so. But that was my take.